Okay, folks, we'll start in 1 minute. It's 11:59. Okay, everybody, my name is Eddie Laporte. I'm the Executive Director of the New Jersey Office of Faith-Based Initiatives. And today we're having a webinar, and it's called Social Innovation Question and Answer Webinar. And a couple things, let's hold our questions to the end. You can write them in the Q&A text box on the bottom, or if you'd like at the end, if you want to, verbally ask your questions, I can allow you to ask your questions. You can raise your hand if you click the participant box, and you'll be, I think there's an option on the bottom of your PC and or laptop and or smartphone where you can raise your hand, and I'll find you and I'll give you access to speak. Hello, can you hear me? Can anyone hear me? Okay, I'm having just a, yes, good. I see, thank you. You just went out, but I'm back. You guys can hear me, right? Great. I see the little microphone working. Yes, great. Thanks, Dr. Tyler. Okay, so let me start. Here we go. So when you gain access to, usually what I do in this process is I go through navigating our website, because a lot of folks just don't take the time to do that. So I want to just go through our website. Our URL is www.nj.gov/state/ofbi.shtml, but I don't even remember that. So what I do is I just Google New Jersey Office of Faith-Based Initiatives, and it brings me to this page. And so if you're brought to any one of these buttons up here, you want to click the OFBI homepage, which brings you to this page. If you scroll down, you'll see spotlights and trending. If you click on the Instant Connect, it's a registration form that you fill out and you submit it, and you click Instant Connect, and it automatically adds you to our Constant Contact database, where you'll get access to funding and other resource opportunities and trainings and the like. All right. Back to the home page. To get access to our grant opportunities, you want to click Grant Opportunities, and it'll take you to our Grant Opportunities page. Right. So this is the disclaimer for Project Atlas grantees, that if they were funded in 2020 and in 20 and or last year, they cannot apply for Project Atlas 2022. If you scroll down on the grant guidelines, you'll see the links to our grant guidelines. And today we will be focusing on social innovation grant guidelines, and I'll open that up in a few minutes. The application due date is May 21st, 2021. So you have more than enough time to get it together and really submit a competitive application. The only supporting documents that you have to upload for the social innovation grant and or whatever funding category you're applying for is the board resolution, right? So the board, when you click this link, board resolution, FY22 board resolution, you'll see this document. It's a fillable PDF where you just fill in the information requested. We're not asking for signatures because we're still in COVID, and we understand how challenging it is to, get documents signed. So this little disclaimer here really states that everybody is okay with the printed name acting as a signature. And then you would save it, and then you would upload it into the SAGE application. Now, SAGE is our electronic online grant application, and it stands for Systems I would get this messed up, and I know Zainab sent this to me. Simpsons applying for grants electronically, something to that effect. SAGE. I think she's correcting me right now. Let me see. So no, let me go through the entire process, and I probably will answer a lot of your questions. This is going to take like 25 minutes, and then we'll be done. Let me see. So these are the only documents you need to upload, right? The board resolution. In the past, we asked you for logic models, but I took that out. I took that out just to make this easier and more streamlined for folks. If you scroll down further on the technical assistance webinars, this is, you can either click here, technical assistance webinars, or you can scroll up to our navigation bar and click webinars. When you click either one of those, it'll take you to our webinar page, right? So if you've never applied for an application to the New Jersey Department of State Office of Faith-Based Initiatives, and or if you've never applied on Blue Sage, I'm not talking about Green Sage, but Blue Sage, you need to register onto Blue Sage. This webinar is a 5-minute webinar where it provides step-by-step instructions on how you need to register for Blue Sage. Once you register to Sage, you'll get an email from our admin department at the Department of State saying, hey, you now have access to Sage. You can get into your application. You can now gain access to Sage using your username and password. Once you gain access to Sage, if you're new, even if you've been funded before, you need to watch step 1 organization information. There's five pieces of information that you need to upload into Sage. One of them is a valid charity registration number and proof that that number is compliant. The second one is a valid Division of Revenue number and proof that that number is valid and compliant. The third is you need to upload your organization's IRS 501c3 determination letter. And it must state, listen to this, folks, it must state the following, that your organization is created to provide charitable services. If it states that your organization is created to provide religious services, we won't be able to fund you because we don't fund religious institutions. All right, we haven't, and we're not, because our funding is state taxpayer dollars. So, and then the next document is your certificate of incorporation, and your last document that you need to upload is your certificate of standing. Now, if you've never done this before and gained access to those documents, this webinar provides step-by-step instructions, and it actually navigates the Division of Consumer Affairs website to show you exactly how you get your charity registration number and to figure out whether you're compliant or non-compliant, right? And what you need to do with that. It also shows you how to navigate the New Jersey Department of Treasury step by step in order to gain access to your Division of Revenue number, your certificate of incorporation, and your certificate of standing. Now, the certificate of standing is good for an entire year. So if the application is due on May 20, it's due May 21st, and your certificate of standing is good until April 20th, 2020, that application that certificate is still good. So if you have one from last year that you've uploaded into the step 1 organization information and you're within the anniversary birth date of that document, you're still good to go. That goes for Division of Revenue, that goes for certificate of standing. So you got to be within the year birthday of when the old one is, when last year's is expired. Okay. So this is that one. Now, if you've never done this, if you've never gone through and to get these documents, I suggest that you not wait until the week of the application is due, because you'll never get it in. You'll never get it in. So let me go back here. So on our grant opportunities page, if you scroll down to the bottom and you access the Division of Consumer Affairs website, because this webinar tells you to or shows you to, and your charity registration number doesn't pop up, and or your charity registration number is non-compliant, then what you need to do is click this link here, right? DCA portal filings, and this document pops up. So this is for the Division of Consumer Affairs portal filing instructions. This gives you step-by-step instructions on what you need to do in order to gain access to register to the Division of Consumer Affairs and or figure out how to pay whatever fees you need to pay in order to be compliant. Now, here's the deal. You can't call us because we can't help you with this, right? There's a telephone number at the bottom of this document. It's 973-504-6215. You need to email them directly, right? And that same number is on the bottom of our grants page. And it's 973-504-6215. And let me tell you this, folks. I have dealt with organizations that have multiple funding streams in the millions of dollars, that have advanced, high-level executives, really trained directors, and they have trouble getting their charities registration compliant because they forget to submit the information so that they pay their filings. So this is not targeted to small organizations. This is also for larger organizations, all right? So, so that's that as far as this grant page is concerned. Now, what I'm going to do today is I'm briefly going to go over the social innovation grant guidelines. Now, if you remember in the webinar, I forgot to say this about the webinar. If you scroll further down, there's other webinars that are specific to specific grant opportunities. So this webinar focuses on Project Atlas. This webinar focuses on social innovation. This webinar focuses on special projects. This webinar focuses on social enterprise entrepreneurship development grant, or the SEED grant, right? So these webinars, and I'll speak specifically to social innovation, but all these webinars here are detailed webinars that talk you through the process of gaining access to Sage, right? Which is our electronic portal to submit your application, how to create your particular application, and then I go into detail explaining the grant guidelines. So I am not going to regurgitate what the webinar says. I'm simply here to give you a broad stroke about what the grant guideline is, and then give you an opportunity to answer whatever questions you want to ask us about social innovation. So I'm going back to the grant guidelines. So this is the grant guidelines. This is the one you're going to be working off of. And let me say this: organizations applying for a social innovation grant can only apply for one funding category under social innovation, just one. Organizations applying for a social innovation grant can also apply for one funding category under special projects. All right. So the max number of applications that you can submit is two. One funding category for social innovation, and then you do another application for special projects. The application due date is May 21st, 2021. I already showed you where the webinars are, so I'm not going to talk about that again. Eligible criteria are really those 5 documents that you need to submit, right? Your 501c3 determination letter, your charity registration number and proof that that number is valid, your division of revenue number and proof that that number is valid, your certificate of incorporation, and your certificate of standing. That's what you need in order to be considered and for the peer reviewers, for us to move your application to be reviewed by the peer reviewers. Ineligible applicants has always been, and we never have funded religious institutions with state taxpayer dollars. So again, we've never done it, and we're not going to do it. So we don't fund houses of worships. We don't fund churches, mosques, temples, synagogues. We just don't do it. We're not funding colleges and universities, and we're not funding public schools, charter schools, or private schools. Grant awards. For college readiness, the maximum request is $20,000. The total available funding for that particular category is $140,000. We're going to fund youth entrepreneurship. The maximum request is $20,000. The total funding for that funding application is $120,000. For STEAM, science, technology, engineering, arts, and math, the maximum request is $20,000, and the total funding available for that funding category is $140,000. Now, the College Readiness Grant is designed to create greater access to colleges targeting ages between 16 and 65. Whatever age group you want to work with in that range, we're okay with it. The funding can be used to, but not limited to, subsidizing the minimum of 5 college application fees, college acceptance fees, coordinating college tours, and completion of students' FAFSA application. Now, I understand that coordinating college tours is going to be a little tricky because we're still in COVID, but there are a lot of online college opportunities that give you virtual tours. You might want to look into that. And they're probably a lot cheaper than actually getting on a bus and going down to a particular college. So remember, we're still in COVID, and we're going to be in COVID for a while. So you've really got to think about whether you want to take these kids on a bus to out of state. And I just think you got to be careful about that. Okay, youth entrepreneurship. It's designed to develop skills and strategies that equip youth and attend middle school or high school, right? So the goal here is to teach these kids the skill sets needed to become entrepreneurs, right? And then develop a particular business plan, and you can do a pitch competition with them, and you can give them up to a $500 startup money, which you will steward as an organization. You're not going to give Eddie at 14 $500 because Eddie's going to go out and buy some sneakers and some clothes and get the minimum amount of inventory that he's going to need to make this thing work. So you need to steward the $500 for Eddie and whoever wins the pitch award. Science, technology, engineering, and math. Now also, because we're in COVID, when you're writing this application, you got to think about, because the peer reviewers are going to be like, well, how in the world are you going to do this like face to face if we're still in COVID? So I think you guys got to really begin to think about, okay, we're probably going to be a little looser, the COVID sometime in the fall, and we may have to really think about doing a hybrid type of a program or continue to stay online virtually, and and you need to take that information and build it into your application so that the peer reviewer understands that you're thinking long-term and not just short-term. That, we're in COVID now, the grant's probably going to get to us about August. We're not sure where we're going to be. So we plan to still do this on virtual. As things loosen up a little bit, we'll pivot, we'll migrate to hybrid. As things get back to normal, we'll migrate to face-to-face, or you can just decide, you know what, we kind of like staying online and we want to do this because it's a lot easier. It's less on rent, less on staff, less on food. So maybe we're going to do one more year of virtual programming. So that's really up to you to think that through in your application. Now, the STEM, and the reason I've said all that about STEM is because it's still challenging to do STEM virtually, and you really got to think about, how are you going to be moving forward and how are you going to teach STEM in a COVID world where it's going to be challenging to really get these kids involved with, designing arts and coding and robotics and astronomy and things of that nature. So you really got to think about how you're going to move forward with that. All right. So if you scroll down, the application due date, the program year is July 1, 2021 to June 30th, 2022. Again, the application is due May 21st, 4:59. Scores that rate 69 or lower will not be considered for funding. So when you watch the social innovation webinar, and you begin to write the application on Sage, you're going to need to have these guidelines available, because we're asking you to answer specific bullets, and we're not asking you to submit whatever it is you want to submit in those sections. So in project summary, we're asking you to indicate the amount that you're applying for and the purpose of the program, ensure that all clients receiving services are low income, and explain how you will verify that low income status. Under organizational capacity, we need you to answer these 3 bullets. provide a brief history of the organization, provide a brief description of the makeup of the board, how many times are they scheduled to meet, and how many times did they meet in 2020. Because it's important, the capacity of an organization is also tied to a functional board of directors. And so we want to get a sense of where you're at organizationally. And then we want you to also provide in this section a description of the staff associated with the program and what are their roles and how are they going to operate the program moving forward. Statement of need, we want you to answer this bullet. Indicate which surveys, needs assessments were used to inform the organization that the program it is applying for is needed in the community. It's real simple, folks. Why are you applying for STEM? What makes you think that STEM is needed in the community? And what surveys or needs assessment that you use, not that you have to create it, that you currently use that said, you know what? Let me just say, I'm just going to throw out a county, Vineland or Lakewood understands that STEM is important because a county needs assessment had identified that STEM, that poor folks, poor kids or kids of color have limited access to STEM and STEM education in school. And so they suggest that community-based organizations create after-school STEM program. That's the sort of stuff that we want to find in here, right? Statement of collaboration. Indicate who are the 3 collaborating partners and how will the partnership impact the organization's ability to implement the proposed project. We are not asking you this year to actually get letters of support because again, we're in COVID and it's going to be challenging to get those letters. So in the application on Sage itself, you'll be able to give a brief summary of 3 organizations and what their roles are working with you as it relates to this funding opportunity. Project design. We're just asking you to answer this bullet. Provide a detailed description of the project, who, what, where, when, and why. How many days do you meet? What's the curriculum like? What are the kids going to learn? What are they going to do? Where is it going to be held? When is it going to be held? And why did you decide to get to develop this project design? That's it, the 5 W's, right? Target population, that's pretty self-explanatory. Describe the population that the organization plans to provide services to. Gender, income, educational status, a particular zip code, stuff like that. Goals and objectives, indicate the goals and objectives associated with the project. Evaluation, indicate how you will measure whether to what extent the program success has been achieved. Now, under the evaluation section, folks, don't copy and paste theoretical concepts from a textbook that you have on your shelf that's dusted. Just tell us, these are the goals, these are objectives, and how do you plan to show that the program is successful? It's really simple. We're not trying to get a dissertation, or we don't want you to submit some type of PhD defensible paper. It's just how are you and the organization going to show that this program was successful? Now, for the budget, you're going to have to complete all budget forms in Sage. Now, these expenditures are not mandatory, but they are there to give you a sense of what other expenses we will support. So, for example, we will support up to $2,000 of the grant funds can be used for the purchase of technology. And you know what? You might need it. With all this online stuff, you might need to upgrade, if you haven't already, your Wi-Fi capabilities. You may have to think about that. Up to $1,500 of the grant can be used for administrative costs. Now, I still get questions from nonprofits about what do we mean by administrative costs, and it's not surprising to me because nonprofits have been denied the opportunity to have a line item for admin costs. But you know what? We're going to give that to you, but you don't have to use it, but it's there. And the way that we define admin costs are expenses that are not yet identified. Let's say, you need $300 because you want to pay a volunteer a stipend to help you out with, well, here's where you get the $300. Let's say your PSE&G bill, you budgeted it out monthly for 12 months and it's $300 over budget for 1 month. Well, here's where you get the $300. You feel me? You understand what I'm trying to say? Let's say that you realize that when you pivoted from 100% virtual to a hybrid type of a program that you got to provide some type of snacks for these kids after school, well, guess what? This is where you get that money to make that happen. So it's giving you some flexibility in your budget so you can really move with the needs of your particular program. You can also budget up to $1,000 for staff development. And this is always a staple for me because I know that nonprofits don't pay well. I come from the nonprofit world, and I was fortunate enough to work with nonprofit leaders that valued their staff and sent them to training, sent us to conferences, allowed us to learn, allowed us to network, and allowed us to come back into the organization and begin to practice some of the new stuff that we learned to make either our program better or the people that we supervise better. And so, $1,000 of grant funds can be used for, grant writing courses for your staff, or maybe paying for an online college course for your staff, or a graduate course, or pay, help you supplement the graduate course you want to pay for your staff. So that's the sort of stuff that we're talking about. And finally, up to 85% of the OFBI grants can be used for personnel. That's right. I didn't stutter, and it's not a typo. Up to 85% of the grant can be used for personnel of the OFBI grant. Right? And under required appendices, you need to upload the board resolution. And that's it. Now, the stuff under here, restricted limitations, restricted limitations talks about non-discrimination of religious organizations, recognition of cultural sensitivity, reporting requirements. This is templated language that we use for all of our grants. So that's it, folks. Let's look at that. We started at 12 o'clock and my part is over. It's 12:26. So there's a couple of questions that I think that are up here. So let me go into the chat and say, can the funds be used for conferences? Well, let's talk about that, Dr. Tyler. We're in COVID, right? And how realistic is it? Oh, virtual? Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, if you want to do a virtual conference for whatever it is that you're applying for, and it makes sense and it's part of your program design, then yeah, Dr. Tyler, you could put it in. Remember, you're not convincing me, you're convincing the peer reviewers that are reading this at like 2 and 3 in the morning, and you got to convince them that this virtual conference that you're thinking about kind of sort of makes sense. And if you're going to do a virtual conference, then you're going to want to put into your application the design of that conference. Are you going to go into breakout rooms? Who might be your guest speakers? How long is this conference? Is it all day, a couple of hours? Is it 1 hour? Is it a series of speaker panels that you're trying to do? So you want to try to convince them, not necessarily me. Hamna Kuld. So we don't need the logic model this year. Want to make sure, thanks. No logic model this year, so you're good to go with that. And those are really the Okay, now can you hear me, everybody? Okay, great. So let me, I'm sorry, I think Zoom is just like taking over and just doing stuff on its own. I know that you all can identify with that. And if you can't, then get a sense of humor, please, because I got to deal with this stuff all the time. Let me see if there's any questions. Let me see. Are Chromebooks an allowable cost as an incentive for student participation and attendance? You know what? Yeah, why not? Because, if you're dealing in this COVID space and you need to, bring this digital divide a little narrower, then yeah, I think that's a good way of using the Chromebooks. They're not that expensive, and the kids can have them for future use. I'm good with that. What are you looking for regarding the board's fiduciary impact? I'm not really. I just want to know, do they meet every month or do they meet every other month? Do can you indicate in that section of the application that you guys have minutes, that you have a full board, that you have, that you have the positions of the executive board, which is, chair, vice chair, secretary, and treasurer. I'm not trying to figure out whether your board members come out of pocket to support the organization. But if you got a functional board and you want to throw that in there, Janice Elderman, of course you can. Okay. All right. Let me click off on that. All right. Are there any? Oh, hold on. Oops. Again, it's been kicked out of. I've been kicked out of this Zoom meeting twice already. Can you believe that? I know you can, because it probably happens to you too. Let me. Are there any other questions? So this here webinar is streamed live on the New Jersey Office of Faith-Based Initiatives Facebook page. So you can go there and watch it whenever you want. I'm also going to upload this webinar onto our OFBI webinar section on our website. So you can go there and check that out whenever you want. Oh, we have another question, I hope. Let me see. Do you have a maximum organizational budget this year? No, the maximum organizational budget, Janice, it was only for organizations applying for Project Atlas. There's a budget there that, organizations that have a budget between $0 and $100,000 can only apply, but for social innovation, there is no particular budget maximum there. Let me see. Glassroots, thank you, Eddie. These webinars are very informative. And that seems to be it for the questions. So again, folks, the application is due May 21st, 4:59 p.m. You have more than enough time to get it together. Watch the webinars, because listen, if you call us or you email us and you're asking a question that I know is answered in the webinar, my staff is going to direct you back to the webinar. They're just going to, go check out the webinar, because everything is explained in there. Eddie's been telling you for the last year that everything is in there. So check out the webinar, make sure that you can get that information. And then after you watch the webinar and you still don't get it, then you can email us and then we'll follow up with you. And we are real responsive with email. You can email us at OFBI, Oscar Frank Boy Indian, at sos.n as in new, j as in Jersey.gov. So it's OFBI at sos.nj.gov. All right, everybody, listen, be safe, mask up still. We gotta make it to, again, this is acting up. Be safe. There's 2 more questions. Did you mention that we don't need to provide support letters for the social innovation this year? Yes, Rose. You don't need to submit support letters because we're in COVID, and I know it's tough getting those letters. So in the application itself on Sage, you'll be able to summarize who are your 3 collaborating partners. From anonymous attendee, do agencies have to go through the legal audit again? No, anonymous attendees. If you've already been through that process with the support center, you don't have to go through that process again. All right. So everybody, listen, I'm assuming that that's it for the questions. Let me see. That seems to be it for the questions. Thank you very much. Listen, mask up, stay safe. Let's make it to August, folks. If we make it to August, I think we'll be okay. If you got any other questions, again, email us at ofbi@sos.nj.gov. And that is that. I'm going to end this, this event. Have a good day, and we shall talk to you later. Bye-bye, everybody.